Yes, yes, yes. Give it up for the foundation. There'll be plenty of chance to applaud here in a second. We're going to have folks introduce themselves so we can get right to it. I'm not going to spend too much time on the bios. I will say that my name is Adam Moore. I'm the EEO and Diversity Director for SAG-AFTRA. I want to thank the SAG-AFTRA Foundation and the Australian Equity Foundation. I don't know if you guys know this, but we are live streaming Down Under right now. It is tomorrow, so we're beaming into the future. You are a part of that. We're all a part of that. We are going to go start all the way at the end and then come back this way just so people can raise their hands and say hello to everybody out in the audience and everybody down under. And we're going to get to a fantastic conversation with some of the people who are personally responsible for the incredible amount of diversity we see on television today, and some of the people who have actually gone through some of these programs so you yourself can learn how to be a part of it and what lessons we can learn from the decades that have worked that it's gone into it. So starting all the way down at the end, please just raise your hand and say you are.
Hi, I'm Erik Rivera, comedian, actor.
I'm Jandiz Estrada Cardoso, and I work at NBC.
I'm Brett Maline, also comedian and actor.
I'm Fern Orenstein. I work at CBS Casting.
I'm Chum, Ehelepola, and I'm an actor.
Hi, Peachy Pascual from ABC Casting.
Now we can applaud. Fantastic. So we're going to try to do a lot in 90 minutes. You'll see the people who are watching this live stream on the lower third, how you can ask questions. People here can ask questions, as Dennis said, via note card. We're going to ask the folks from the networks and whoever would like to take this, whether it's Fern or Peachy or Jandiz first, because we want to hear from all of you. Just a little bit of background so we can get a sense of why it is that this exists in these networks in the first place. And as you go about these things in a slightly different way, because over the years you've learned different things and come at it in slightly different ways, give us a little bit of foundation about what the programs are, why they're there, and why they're important to your individual network. They put you on the spot, Peachy.
You know, it's a priority for the network, number one. I represent both ABC Network and ABC Studios, and it's one of the key things that we're always looking for is diversity. You know, it's crucial to the business. You know, when we're looking out in, you know, developing shows and casting the shows, we're always looking for, you know, the fresh faces, the unique voices, and with that is, you know, finding diversity both on screen and behind the scenes. So, you know, for the network, we have not only the casting department that oversees, you know, six to seven casting initiatives, whether it's the talent showcase that we've been doing since 2001, or the actor audition workshops that we've been doing for about 3 years in both New York and LA, or it's the international outreaches that we do in Latin territories, Asian territories. It's, you know, crucial. And then you complement that with what the creative talent team is doing with the writing fellowship and the directing fellowship. All of that comes together to, you know, put together a pool of talent that both the network and the studios can look to and find ways to integrate them in the programming that we do every day.
And for your specific network, what does diversity mean? Is there a definition? What's the world that we're looking at for diversity? Because it's a word that's used often now, and so let's maybe, and it changes depending on who you're talking to and what there is. But for ABC, what does that look? What does that mean?
For us, we always looked at diversity to cover, you know, whether it's a man or a woman, or, you know, someone, performers with disabilities, or it could be, you know, actors who are over the age of 40 to 50. You know, it's not necessarily just diversity for the sake of ethnicity, but it's also diversity in the sake of what is their point of view, what were their, cultural or religious, or all of those backgrounds, I think is crucial. It's a very multi-dimensional term, and we kind of look at it as that.
Great, thank you.
And I can speak, I mean, it is definitely a priority for us as well. But I think all of the programs, whether it's our network or any of the other networks, I think people really need to take advantage of them, because you will find not only do we do, you know, a big sketch comedy showcase. But our writers program, our directors programs, there's a lot of programs, and it's important. I think, to be honest, it's important to get writers. To me, that's probably the priority, is getting in those rooms so that they write, your voice.
Right, the diversity of experience and perspective and thought that Peachy was talking about. Jandiz.
So I specifically work for talent development programming for NBC Universal. So what I am primarily in charge of is on-camera talent, so actors, comedians of that sort. And what my department is responsible for is about 26 initiatives altogether. We have a short film festival, which awards. I have the honor of giving 2 talent holding deals at the end of that to the best actress. The best director gets pitch meetings and like a $60,000 camera package from Panavision, and just sort of introductions to the other networks, because under Universal there's also Oxygen and Bravo and USA and Telemundo, and we have all of these networks that are just dying for new creative content. So the Short Film Festival is a good pipeline into that, especially for writers. We give the best writer opportunity to be considered for the Emerging Writers Program for Universal. We also, like I said, make introductions to our development program. Our development and programming departments. We have many of our executives as the judges for the Short Film Festival, and they also not only like attend the screenings and they watch all the films, but they also end up taking pitch meetings and just sitting down with these people and hearing like, so can your project actually turn into a series, or can it go elsewhere, or can this talent cross over into something else? So I work directly, even though my department has like scholarships for comedians and training and whatnot, I specifically don't head any director or writer programs. I work specifically with the on-camera talent.
So we're going to hear from the networks about how they think you're supposed to take advantage of these things, but we have some people who've actually done it. So I'm interested to hear from the actors on the stage, how did you actually take advantage of the things that they've been talking about? And then we'll hear about the websites and all of the good things that they have. But I want to hear kind of specifically, and I think the folks in the audience would also, how did you come to be a part of this family of folks who are doing this work? And whoever wants to take it first can jump in.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I'm Australian, and as you can tell by my accent, what? He could be Australian? So yeah, when I came here, I initially got put through ABC to the writing department, because I'm also a writer, and had a great meeting there with a guy called Tim McNeil. And he had a look at my reel and kind of said, I think you should go and meet Peachy and these guys. So I went and met them, and they were wonderful, and I didn't even know about diversity, to be quite honest, when I came from Australia. I didn't even realize it was a thing that existed. So when I heard that this program was available, I was like, yeah, of course, I'll audition for it. And then when I realized the number of people that applied to this, I was kind of overwhelmed. I was like, wow, that many people. And then when I got in, I was like extremely lucky to get in. And then it just really shifted it, because I was in a room with just these gorgeous ethnic actors, and like, now not just ethnicities, like, as you said, people with disabilities, but just so talented. And we used to sit there and look at us and kind of go, imagine if this was a show. If these people were all a show, with interesting voices and accents and kind of just personalities, and I just found it really enriching to be in that group and to kind of learn from different styles and tones of performances. And how did I take advantage of it? I think it really just gave me a chance to honestly just be really proud of who I am, and just as soon as that solidified in me, because I remember I did a scene, I said to them, I was like, oh, should I do this in an American accent? And they're like, no. Why would you do that? You're not American. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I get to just do these scenes in my actual accent. And then when I just met these guys, they were just so wonderful and encouraging and supportive that it just actually really grounded me in this industry, which you can really lose your footing very quickly and very easily.
Brett, Erik?
So I have been studying at Groundlings Improv, and through that, I've made great friends and who did the showcase, CBS showcase last year. And I went to the showcase. I was like, holy moly, I got to be a part of that. And so they gave me the info, and I, was very lucky to get an audition. Went through the process and got in. And I think that if you want to do comedy, get into an improv class, because more than acting class, improv, you're going to meet people that are doing the same thing you're doing. And even when you're not in class, you're going to find yourself riffing with them. You're going to find yourself, it's going to put you into that mindset, and you're going to be in that mindset every day. And that's where you need to be. You got to be there every day. Yeah, you have your day jobs. You got to do what you got to. We all have our day jobs to do what we got to do to be out here, to make it out here, right? But you got to be in that mindset every day of like, that's what I want to do. That's what you moved out here to do. Or if you're already living here, that's why you're staying here. And so with that, that's how I met all these amazing people that helped me get into and get to know Fern and get to know the people at CBS who were deciding who was going to be in the showcase. And those people, those friends that I made and improvised with and wrote sketch with in Groundlings, they were the ones that really helped me get a connection with these guys. So it starts in, that's what I'm saying, get in an improv class if you're a comedian, because that's where it starts, is those relationships that help you build relationships to make more relationships. What I got out of CBS Showcase, beyond, I'll be straight up, I went from auditioning for 5 lines to auditioning for 8 pages. Period. Straight up. Before the showcase is done, boom. It was instant. And I went out for, I don't even know how many series regular pilots for CBS. They're like, this is it. Here is, this is where you're gonna be now.
And you tested.
And I was very fortunate to test for that. Thanks.
Yeah, clap for that.
But we aren't as pleasant. His experience wasn't as pleasant as yours. I can just tell you that. It's not a pleasant, fun experience.
And it's hard. Yeah, they put you through it. It's a boot camp. It's not. They're not gonna give it to you. It's an experience, and you work with people, and you're in front of it. This is the best thing, is you're in front of execs. I don't know how ABC and NBC works, but with CBS, for 4 months, we got to be in front of CBS executives pitching our original material every day. And you're getting it, and it's a CBS execs, what they're looking at. And a lot of times you're like, I don't agree with that. Well, it doesn't matter if you agree with it. They're the ones that you got to impress across the board. And so when you learn, the best thing that I learned was, because as, I was born, I'm a white guy from Nebraska, but I was born with scoliosis. And so a lot of times, I'm trying to figure out how to make that funny. Because most of the time people look at me and they do, oh. But so in CBS, I figured out how to turn the into to get people to laugh with me, and to get people to write characters that, they're these guys that no one, I wrote a sketch where nobody wanted to pick them in dodgeball. He's like, all right, okay. It's like you get people, you find ways to make people laugh at the thing that diversifies you, that makes you different. And if I think as a comedian, when you can find that thing, that's what makes you indispensable. And that's what I got from that. Yeah.
Thank you. Erik?
Oh, how do I follow you, man? Damn. So I'm a New York City stand-up. That's where I started stand-up comedy, and I'll tell you now, there's like hundreds of stand-up comics in New York that you'll never hear of. They're the funniest things out there. I think once I started the NBC Stand Up for Initiatives program, I auditioned a couple times and then finally went to the finals and then moved out here. They actually offered me a bunch of resources that I didn't know existed in New York. Because in New York, it's all about stand-up. That's the hustle. That's the grind. You're trying to do spots. You're doing, 4 or 5 spots a night. You're doing 30 spots a week. That's what it is out there. And then coming out here, I realized it was a different beast altogether. And with them, they offered me these resources where I got to see what the acting world was like. I got to audition for stuff. I've gotten stuff where I've done web series for them on their different platforms. I've met with their head of casting. I've met with their unscripted who've put me up for stuff that I'm just blown away by. Oh my God, they're considering me for that. I did Tonight Show. a year after doing the Stand Up for Initiative, because now I'm on their radar, and they've actually taken the time to really like nurture me and guide me along in the right path of what I should be doing or where I should be looking throughout my career. So it's been an awesome experience for me.
That's awesome. We're hearing about, obviously, this, that, in a business that is built on relationships and reputation, beyond your skill set, we're hearing about the fact that they're helping you develop those relationships, helping you continue to hone your craft. And one of the things that this isn't new, but I think the thing to hone in on here is that, it's about doing it, right? When they're looking for people for these showcase opportunities or for these fellowship opportunities, they're looking for people who aren't brand new to this. I could be wrong, right? But you're not looking for people who are kind of straight up kind of figuring out how to make it work for themselves. They're trying to find people who are ready to work, who need that extra that extra break, that extra incentive, that extra mentoring. So can you talk about from Fern and Jandiz and Peachy, can you talk about any, other than the amazing success stories on this stage perhaps, but any kind of anecdotal and stories that you have about this person went from this to that to this and here's a success story, or frankly, we tried this when we first started and it didn't work. We then evolved into, I don't think CBS started off with a multicultural sketch comedy showcase, but they learned that this is what they needed to be doing. So I think that whether it's a success story or frankly the things that you've learned along the way that can be instructive for people here, but also as we're talking to people in Australia who are trying to figure out how to build these things from the ground up now, talk about maybe what you've learned.
Well, I can tell you, we started 14 years ago doing showcases. And it was, okay, we're going to do the African American showcase. Now we're doing the Asian American. And I was doing a showcase every 3 months. It was so much, we weren't doing comedy, we were just doing scenes. And not as horrible as like a John Patrick Shanley play or Shakespeare. We were trying to be, somewhat, whatever. Anyway. But then what would happen was, so this was going on for, I would say, about 2 years, right? And it was like every 3 months. And finally, all my casting director friends, and we would do these at 99-seat theaters, and they said, we love you, but you're asking us to come out every 3 months for a different group. And it's exhausting. And I couldn't find any more scenes. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do, right? So then we also realized that people were making headway in dramas faster than they were in comedies in terms of diversity. So we thought, okay, what is the issue here in comedies? Why are we having so much difficulty? And we came up with the idea of, let's do I might end up swearing in this place. Is that okay?
We'll beep you out. It's fine. There's a delay. There's a red button.
You know
Bring
what?
it.
We're going to
Drop
do a
some
sketch
F-bombs.
show. Thank you. And then I'm thinking, oh, fuck, I'm totally screwed because now we have to be original. I can't even steal from anywhere. So that was my nightmare, is that then I realized, oh my God, this shit's got to be original and funny, because I can't ask people to come and clap. So it was like a nightmare that I created. Thank you. That's how that happened.
At ABC, we're celebrating our 15th anniversary for our showcases, which is a huge thing. We're close to 600 actors have kind of gone through the process. And like what Fern was saying is that we started doing specific ethnicity showcase right at the beginning. But every year we were learning a little bit about what was going on, what the industry needed, what our showrunners and our writers needed. So it started off as just doing those ethnic specific showcases to showcases in LA and in New York. We've also done something in Chicago, and for the last, I think 3 to 4 years, we started supplementing. We just realized that actors were writers too. And there's also a lot of writers that we're not tapping into. So that's when we started incorporating, utilizing original material. So we're asking writers across the US to submit their material for us to actually utilize in our showcases. So that was one evolution of it. The other part of it was, we have these relationships with organizations like East West Players or Nosotros or Native Voices, and they're really great partners for us. but what else can we do? So we started implementing actor audition workshops. And what that did was it introduced another level of actors that we can be, that we can kind of look at. And, you know, one example is an actress by the name of Kirby Halbaptiste, who was part of our UCB workshop. She came in, she did the actor audition workshop. We invited all of the people who participated in that workshop to do pre-reads for our showcases. Our showcases, we get anywhere between 10 to 15,000 submissions just in LA alone. From those 1,000 submissions, we'll pre-read about 1,000 of those. And that gets whittled down to a cast of usually 12 to sometimes 20 actors. So, Kirby went through the process, she auditioned, we put her in the LA showcase. Right after the LA showcase, she booked a pilot for us. After that, for that pilot, unfortunately, it didn't go. But what that did, it introduced her not only to the industry, but the creative and the casting executives, and we made a talent deal with her. From that talent deal, she got another pilot. So, it's one of those things where, although getting actors can come from so many different places, and sometimes you'll hit, and sometimes you'll be, the next Lupita who we had in the showcase, or Gina Rodriguez. But what we found, especially this past casting for this past pilot season, is we are so proud to say that we have a showcase actor who is cast in a series regular role in both a comedy and in a drama in all 4 broadcast networks. So that's a huge thing for us to be able to do that. So it's not only a success for ABC, the network, but they're finding jobs everywhere. So,
Jandiz?
Yeah, thank you. I want to just say that I applaud these women for putting on these showcases, especially Fern's. Fern's was the most incredible this year ever. If you guys haven't attended, I think they had like 9. They had 9 performances, which is pretty amazing. And it's necessary, I think, because the attendance is so high. And we all do everything differently at different networks. I worked on a showcase for ABC when I worked at ABC in New York, and at that time, I think they were just using published scripts from plays, and now, as Peachy was saying, with the evolution of everything, things change. At NBC, we've only been doing this showcase for 9 years now, and it's different than others because we open a submission window for original writers to submit 2-person comedic scenes, and then we cast it with diverse actors, and then we hire emerging directors to also direct the scenes as well. So it's sort of like this crossover of all the needs that we're looking to service. Every year, I will say, I've been very proud. I've only been working in the department this is my 3rd year now, but every year there is someone that comes out of the showcase that gets cast in one of our pilots, and it's a proud thing that we just found out that another one of our actors got cast in a pilot. So it's a wonderful joy, and it's really rewarding to see, and it's exciting that I have the ability to say that this is a program, and Erik is not bragging about himself tonight, but he is starring in an Oxygen series that airs tonight at 9 p.m. called Living with the Funny. Erik is one of 5 stand-up NBC comedians that were on series this past year on NBC. I don't know if you guys know Laurel Howery on The Carmichael Show, if you guys watch The Carmichael Show. Also Tone Bell, he jokes that he's now going to star in a 4th pilot for NBC, because every year he stars in a pilot, and then for whatever reason they do 13 episodes, they don't renew, but then we just bring him back up, and we bring him back. So we have a good, I think the highest success is with our stand-up comedians. Vladimir Kamanu,
Closest friend of mine, just shot his pilot last week.
Yeah, just shot his
with Bill
pilot.
Lawrence.
So look out for that one. We're hoping that one will get picked up. Ron Funches, and these are comedians that didn't necessarily win the title for the talent deal that year, but because they're so amazing, they get attention just down the road. So Ron always makes a joke that like they didn't like what I was doing back then, because he's got that funny voice. But then 3 years later, after working the circuit, working all the casting directors, because all of these events that we put on, that we produce, they're all highly attended. in New York, we also sponsor a lot of scholarships with UCB, People's Improv, and this will be the first year that we're going to launch a writing scholarship with UCB in LA and a diversity actors scholarship at the Groundlings. So look for those things that are launching this summer.
I think there's a common theme, right? I mean, it seems as if the networks are definitely paying attention to what you all know, which is it's tough to make it out there as any one thing, right? I mean, everybody is a hyphenate of some kind. You're a writer, actor, you're a stand-up producer. This is what they are reacting to. And so I'd like to hear from the performers. I mean, Chum said he started off, coming in as a writer, and we've got stand-up, we've got improv. How is it that this experience prepared you for the machine that you then have to enter that could easily chew you up? There are some practical things that I think that you guys gain when being a part of these institutions that they can teach you about how it is that you can actually, assert yourself and bring some of who you are and what is unique about you that they are desperate for. The producers are clamoring for unique stories and unique perspectives. Talk to us a little bit about what the program allowed you to do when you then came out of the program so that you were better prepared for the opportunities that are more and more available to you. Anyone wants to start?
Yes, I'll start, yeah. So, I started off as a writer, but then I did the showcase and it was really great. In the second year, they asked me to come back and shadow direct for that year. So I got to be part of the selection process, which I found really interesting. And then I also wrote a piece, and it ended up getting selected. So it was really interesting to kind of have acted 1 year and be shadow directing, and then you're watching your work on stage getting developed by these executives and really talented people. And I did New York, and I was kind of on Skype. I remember, I think you were there, weren't you? Yeah, Peachy was there, Kelly Lee and myself, and we were I was on Skype in my bed watching my scene being done, and the director's head pops in and goes, "What do you think? She's like, can we change that line?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Why not? As an actor, it was grueling. The audition process, you can't be weak. Because it is, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, I'm sure it is. It was 2 days of just, I remember I had probably 15 scripts in my hand. And they'll walk out and they'll go, "Okay, Chum, Brett, this scene." And you literally go through, you find the scene, and then you walk in. And then you make some choices, you commit to the choices you make, and basically all of your craft is tested immediately. Immediately. You don't have time to sit there and, rehearse and go back and play it with some people. And I found that really interesting. That helped me afterwards, because when you go into audition, you got to make some choices. And you got to commit to these choices. You can't be, even if it's a wrong choice, it's got to be a committed choice, right? So I really learned a lot about that. And as a side shoot, one of the directors on there is another Pakistani guy. I'm Sri Lankan. We met, we hit it off, we started speaking, and then we started writing. And through the showcase, we got 2 scripts out. So we've just pitched HBO on one of them. And we've got Jim Parsons and Elizabeth Banks, who are kind of interested in producing these scripts of ours. And that came out of the showcase. Had I not been there and met this director and just kind of started riffing about Indian Pakistani issues, we wrote 2 killer scripts that is kind of being shopped around at the moment. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Awesome.
So the CBS process is a little bit different. They ask you to pitch characters. And again, I go back to, you can get out of this place and go tonight and start creating characters. You can, and again, improv, they're doing stuff at UCB and Groundlings. That's where, sorry to only speak to the people that are wanting to do comedy, but the CBS ones, it's only comedy. And if you want to do comedy, it's just creating characters. That's what they're looking for. And, you basically do the first audition is you go and you do 2 minutes of characters. And then if you get a callback, they're like, "Okay, great, now we want to see all different characters, but we want 5 minutes." you know, and you go in and you're in front of all the CBS execs and they're talking. Like sometimes they're like in my audition they were like talking as
I
I'm
don't
like
think
doing.
I paid attention.
Yeah, yeah. Fern's like, she's like, what are we gonna? I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. You know, and it's like and I'm like trying to do my character. She's like, I think, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I like him, you know, but it's, you know, it's like, and you're like trying to do yourself, and even
Which is how the business works, right?
Really,
I mean,
yeah.
this is reality.
Oh, it's horrible.
and even after I got into the showcase, it's you're talking, you know, you're doing your stuff, and like even during the fun, like, and this is execs are so cut and dry. Like Fern, like I can't tell you how many times it's not funny. It's not like one day we were the very first sketch to pitch this one day, and we got done. Literally, not a second goes by after the last line, and she's like, "That was a horrible sketch." I'm like, "It started off right today, guys."
Oh yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
But you know,
We write 1,500 sketches, so we better get frickin' 22 funny sketches.
yeah, it's
You don't have time to go. How fast do you get these sketches? 50 a rehearsal.
Well, yeah, we don't. I mean, yeah, you don't even get to rehearse. It's like you get there the day of, and then you look at the sketch real quick. You try to get all the people that you have casted in it to do it, and then you just go up and do it. And it's cold reading, and it's got. I think the thing and what the thing that you really learn is you have to hit in the room. You gotta hit. And what he was talking about is making strong choices. You have to make a strong choice because I mean they're seeing the same thing come in, but if you make a strong choice, and again if you're diverse, if you have that unique thing that you do that no one else does, then that can be the thing that hits for you in the room. And I think that's a great thing that you get from doing one of these showcases.
Eric? We're going to have you go
Be
first next
funny.
time.
Yeah, I need to go
We're going to have you
first.
go
Be
first because
funny.
it's messed up. We're not going to let Brett talk anymore.
Brett's killing me. I think with coming up through the stand-up program, it helped me a lot. First of all, I don't know if it works like this with the other programs, but I have Jandiz's personal number. So if I need anything, like if I need an acting coach, if I need headshot, like I can call her and she picks up. Not on the first try, but she usually picks up. But I'm not gonna lie, it was a good experience just because they know stand-up. Like they help develop you, they help nurture you. They're trusting you. They trust me as a stand-up to know what funny is. You know, I do the market research for them. I go tour across the country, and I know what's funny, right? So then when it comes to my ideas, they're like, so what do you got? And they're kind of trusting me. Like I actually, a couple years ago, sold my pilot, loosely based on my stand-up, with Eva Longoria and her production company, which is over at NBC. And it was developed by me.
How'd you get that meeting?
All through NBC. And it was just, there was some things I didn't know. Like I'm not, technically a writer, so I don't know how the writing process goes. So they teamed me up with somebody. They found somebody for me and helped develop my idea to get it to the point where it needed to be so that I could go in and pitch stuff. I get calls from them still like, hey, you got anything to pitch? Because it's, they constantly, they constantly reach out to the talent to try to get them going, and like Jandiz said, you don't necessarily have to win the whole program to get stuff happening. Like I said before, my friend Vlad, he didn't win the program, but boom, 2 weeks ago he's shooting a pilot, and it's because
What's the name of the pilot?
it's called The Bronx Life. It was supposed to be Vlad because of his ego, but they said no. But you know what I'm saying? Like they call you in, they want to hear your ideas because they know they're fresh ideas. And as if you're in comedy, like they know our minds are working a lot differently. So like the best thing I can tell you guys, like who are actors, and this is the advice I've gotten from them: constantly keep creating. You constantly want to keep creating. You know your voice better than anyone else's. So constantly keep creating. Don't just bank on one idea, because if they say no, which sometimes happens in meetings, you're like, oh, I got this great idea, and they're like, nah, what else you got? You have to have 10 ready to go right out the holster. All right, I got this, this, and this, and this. And then they go, okay. They'll finally pick one, and you go from there.
And it just emphasizes the impossible job that you guys have all volunteered for. This is tough, right? Because you got to commit to choices. You got to make strong choices. And you got to be able to let it go, right? You got to be able to go a different direction. You have to be able to bring your heart and soul to everything and come with ideas, and then let your family, because these people are family. Like, I don't know if you're getting this, but your best friends in the room are Peachy, Fern, and Jandiz, right? I mean, your best friends in the room, they're yelling at you saying that's garbage, like family tells you it's garbage, right? They want you to succeed. They're trying to get the best out of you. So whether it's your script idea or the choice you make as an actor, you have to be able to give it more than you could probably possibly give it, and then let it go if somebody wants something different. And I'll open this up, and we're actually no. I'm gonna pick on Erik again. Erik, you're gonna keep talking, and we're gonna come back this way. Yes. But have you found, let's say, that it is different? Because you talked about coming from New York into LA, and people talk about that transition. I think it's interesting for people to think about what is it like, let's say, to land in LA and all the opportunities that are here. Are there things that you learned through the process that you likely wouldn't have learned staying in New York and hustling in the clubs and doing those sorts of things that was sort of LA specific or industry specific through the program?
I definitely have. Like I said before, it is a different hustle out here. Out there, it's just, you're going up and you're just trying to work on the material and do spots. Out here, there aren't as many stand-up clubs, and there's a logjam of comedians. There's a lot of comedians that have been doing it forever, comedians that have been on TV. You're not going to beat them out for spots. They're not going to pick, random guy versus this guy who's on a sitcom. So it's like, it's a different hustle out here. So you constantly have to start creating different ways, like, writing scripts, writing your voice, writing sketch characters, like Brett was saying, writing web series, writing vlogs. Like, you constantly have to keep creating because you never know what's going to hit. So that always helps when you go into a meeting, because they a lot of these, casting people or even producers, they want to know what you're doing. Like, if you got like nothing, they're like, all right, well, I can't work with this guy. Like, what do you have that's ready to go? So it has been a different hustle. I also learned that every time you leave a meeting and they tell you they love you, doesn't necessarily mean they love you. From New York, I take that at face value. Oh, they loved me. 3 months later, phone's not ringing. I don't think they love me. I think it.
You will never have a bad meeting in LA. That's how everybody works, I'm sorry to say. In New York, they'll tell you to your face, no, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work. In LA, nobody really does that. Chum, Brett, sort of the same question. Like, is there things that you learned through this you talked about meeting people and things like that, but are there things that you've learned through this that have really sort of served you well in rooms that weren't as friendly, that weren't at CBS, that weren't at this company that you went through and are family, and now you're amongst not family, that really translated into the broader world in film and new media outside different networks, whatever it might be?
I think it was a great reminder of when you go into a room to bring it every time, because again, for 4 months, there was days, I'll be straight up with you, there was days where I pitched something and I was like, this is it, and they didn't like it, and I was pissed. Like, there was sometimes I was like, that hit so hard in the room, everybody was laughing, we get the rewrites back for the day, and it's not in there, and I'm like, and there's some days where it's like, what do they want? Some days you just want to throw your hands up and be like, whatever. But the thing of it is that they're paying attention. The execs are paying attention, the casting directors are paying attention. So even if you don't get picked for the role, even if you don't get a callback, bring your best to the room, bring your best to that person, even if it's a meeting, whatever, because, again, relationships, and that's the thing, is like, I learned that, like, even if nothing came of, if I didn't get any auditions out of this showcase, if I didn't get anything else other than the relationships that I've built with the CBS people, that's fine with me, because I can call these guys. I've been calling them. Literally, I'm like, hey, constantly. Fern's like, what is it? But she answers the phone, and
You call my cell phone.
yeah, I call her cell phone. Fern's a really nice person, you guys. No, but seriously, and I think that's the thing, is like, it's easy as an actor to, when you go out of the room and you don't get it, it's like, well, shit, But that's the thing to remember, is because people will remember you. People are going to remember a good performance if you give it to them.
I think one of the things for me that I find interesting, coming from Australia, it's a very different culture to Hollywood. And I've had the fortune in Australia of having done TV shows for all of the networks, but I've never met any of the network executives. Yet I've done shows for each network. And I think there's one network that I have relationships with. So when I came here, this idea of the network exec was like this huge god kind of thing that we just worship and go, please pick me, exec, please pick me. And when I did the showcase, they were just so warm. You guys are like just so warm and lovely, and they normal, exactly. You know, like Peachy's kind of a god. Yeah, you agree, right? She is, totally. You're dead right. This is so normal because you realize that these execs, they understand the actor's journey. And for all the actors out there, you know, it's such a tumultuous journey. It's such an up and down, insecure, vulnerable. One day you think you're awesome, the next day you think you're just shit. And working with these execs, you start to go, oh, right, yes, everyone just wants to play. You know, that's all everyone in the room wants to do is just play, have some fun, try things. Some land on their face, some pop. And doing that the whole time with these execs and with these talented people made me realize that, like, there's a business side to this shit, which as actors we're like, oh, let the agent deal with it, you know? But you kind of, yep, I gotta get my headshot, I gotta get someone to edit my reel, blah, blah, blah. But then you forget to actually just act, you know? You kind of forget to just do your craft. And with these guys, we would just do our craft, and it was so much fun, you know? It was so much fun. And then after the showcase finished, you're right, they're your family. Like, I can call these guys anytime I want, and I have. To get advice, or I had one issue, I was working at agents, I was like, called them, I said, what do you guys think? Can you give me some advice? So it actually made me realize after the showcase that whoever's on the other side of the camera, casting director, testing, whatever, they just want me to have fun. And they just want to have fun, because everyone's in this industry to kind of play and find performances. And so it actually demystified the whole Hollywood thing for me. And I could go in a lot more normal than going kind of petrified and sweating and thinking, I must impress the gods, you know? Yeah.
I'm gonna put some of the network folks on the spot here and maybe talk about some of the uncomfortable things, because we've heard some extraordinary experiences. I think most people's have been that way. It's 2016. A lot of this stuff has gotten a lot better, but let's be honest. I mean, this, in the beginning, certainly took some convincing. Perhaps. This may be an opportunity where you actually had to talk to some of these folks about what it was going to be like in some of these rooms. You've heard things like, you're going to have to be better than everybody else. People are going to be looking at you and giving you one shot and that's it, because they're not convinced that this is a good business decision. This is a risk that they're not willing to take. They don't want to be first in the fire. There are a lot of these things. So are there experiences that you've had over time in doing this work that you've had to have certain conversations with performers of color, people with disabilities, LGBT, senior performers, about the realities that they might face outside of this safe environment that you're creating to prepare them for some of the insensitive questions that they might face, some of the frankly ignorant and fearful people out there that they're going to run into who don't know any better. I don't think they're looking to exclude them, but don't know any better and who aren't the family. And so how is it that you're preparing folks for the reality of what they're going to face when coming from these diverse backgrounds?
Okay, I can tell you, I'm the most insensitive person. So
that's why we get along.
That is it. I, honestly, I'm not. If you can get past me with 4 months, everything. I mean, it's rough. I guess I'm the horrible person that they're all going to see. That's all I can tell you.
So you put him through the ringer, so no
Whitney,
matter
do
what
you
else they're going
agree?
to face. But Jandiz or Peachy, I mean, are there things that you've kind of seen through your time about either how it's gotten better or the ways that you're talking to people about some of the stuff that they might encounter in some of these audition rooms or once they test for the network level? Any of those things?
I would say that first and foremost, a lot of actors come to me and I feel as though their biggest gripe or grievance is that they're feeling like they're being pigeonholed. Like, I'm only seen for my face value, or I'm being too placed in a box. And what I try to remind the actor is that when you come into the room, you're bringing in your own box, and that box is supposed to be a gift that you're ready to leave there for us as casting directors or executives to either open and enjoy and love and appreciate, or we just throw it out with the other toys. But you have to be happy with your product or your gift that you're leaving with us, And you can't look back and wonder like, oh my God, did they love it? Did they like it? Did they not? You're putting everything in that box for us. And we're not deciding for you who you are. You're coming in and you're telling us. And sometimes I feel like actors get to a position in their careers where they're so exhausted with the rejection that they feel as though like they're just gonna do their one shtick. I'm good at this, I book this all the time, I love this role is me and that's what I do. And they forget that they need to do just a little bit more to break out of that because they are pigeonholing themselves because they're bringing in the same thing over and over again. And they need to remember that they're so much more than that. And just because I'm asking you to do this because I know you do it well doesn't mean you can't just remind me that you've got some other stuff in your bag. You've got some other bag of tricks. Because if I like you and I'm bringing you back, it's because I know you have the skill, but I don't want to see you do the exact same thing every time. Sometimes actors are like, oh, I got to give them what they want. You don't, it's not your job to decide what we want. Your job is to be you and your most unique you. And even though there's 15 other girls out there that your height and that color, that hair color and that tight dress on, that doesn't mean that that girl is the sexiest person in the room. The person that walks in with, you know, that quiet subtlety and that mysterious edge, like maybe that girl's got something going on and we don't know what it is, and you're begging us to lean in. We're waiting in the casting room because, you know, we're usually sitting a little far in our chairs because it's 4 hours until lunch and it's been 4 hours since breakfast. But we're waiting for you guys to wake us up. You have to remind us that you are that gift and you're gonna surprise us today. And you are not going to be pigeonholed and you're not gonna be the stereotypical thing that you may have seen on TV 3 years ago that was successful, so everybody's regurgitating it, everybody's adopting it because you think that that's what's it. I don't want what's it. I don't want what's on TV right now. I want something that is new that I can put on and introduce as refreshing and exciting, and it's not gonna be what you've done for me before. Please give me something.
Yeah, I also think, don't you agree that we're also not necessarily always right? I mean, you know, you guys could go into rooms and people will reject you maybe, but fuck them, who cares, you know? I mean, they're not necessarily the end-all, be-all. And believe me, we make big mistakes. We'll do scenes in, you know, at rehearsing during showcase, and we'll completely fuck up a scene, you know, giving in horrible notes, and then they come back and it's like, I'm like, what did we do to that really good sketch? We fucked it up with these horrible notes. So we screw up all the time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's important as actors, I think, to, when you're going into these rooms, and what we like to tell the actors that go through the showcases is that every person behind that desk or behind that camera, they want to hire you. So you're gonna make our lives easier if you just bring yourself. So what Jandiz was talking about is like, forget what the expectations, what the producers may want or what the casting directors may want. Bring you, because you may not be what the breakdown description is, but you may do something in that audition that may make us think twice. And we can always rejigger the character and all of that. So it's important that not only are you coming into that room, just know that that person behind that character, or that camera, wants you to be that person and wants you to be the person that they cast. The other thing too is that I don't think actors realize that there's so many decisions that are made when someone is cast. It's, you know, it could be, you know what, we just cast someone who kind of looks like that person, or you know what, we've reconceived the role and all of that. So don't worry about that. Go into the room, do your job, make those decisions, make those choices unique to who you are, and then just leave it. You know, I like to tell actors is that sometimes, you know what, you're not going to be able to, you're gonna strike out time and time and time and time. And you know, there's actors who audition for our showcase year after year after year, who do pre-reads and all of that. But you know, your time will come. It's all about building those relationships, making those connections, because you never know when that, you know, that one opportunity is gonna come and land on your lap.
Well, let me just pick up on that. Let me follow up on that. I mean, I think a lot of people in this room probably know this, but let's be clear. How many layers are we talking about? I mean, how many people are involved in these decisions to give people a sense of what's going on? I mean, if you want to walk us through a pilot process or whatever it looks like to give us a practical look at, we're not talking about one person just gets to decide. We're talking about layers upon layers.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the way that we do business and do pilot season is insane, because you're talking about a 6 to 8 week period where I think there was over almost close to 100 pilots casting at the same time. We cast, I think, about 175 series regulars in a span of 6 weeks. So in order for a person to be cast as a series regular on a pilot, not only do the writer and the producer and the director have to agree upon a person, but that person also has to be approved by not only the creatives on the studio side and the casting executives on that studio side, but they also have to move up to that next tier, which is the network creatives and the network casting executive and the president of the network. And also, were we able to make a deal with this person? We don't know.
And then two other networks are going after the same person. So
Exactly. So, and all of this is happening all at the same time, which is nuts. So again, it's a larger machine that are making these decisions. So to not get caught up in trying to bring what one person to meet the expectations of one person is probably not it. The only person that you should be meeting that expectation is yourself, because that's the only person that you can control.
And going back to what Fern says about us making mistakes, and then you show up at the table read, and then someone gets fired, and then we recast. And then you shoot the pilot, and then they
you get
watch the
recast.
pilot, and then they recast.
So horrible.
Good times, you guys. This is what you've signed up for. Everybody ready in case you want to walk out now?
I'm thinking, why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this?
I mean, I have an anecdote. I remember I got offered got given a role to me from my agency, and I looked at the character and it was Dr. Chow, and I was like, have they seen my headshot? I'm not sure if I'm a Dr. Chow, and I kind of I said to my agency, I said, I think you're giving me the wrong role. But no, you're going for Dr. Chow. And I was like, okay. And I didn't ask any questions. I just kind of did what you guys are suggesting. I said, okay, well, I'm not Dr. Chow, I'm me. And I just kind of delivered my truth. And I got cast, and then they rejigged the roles around. They kind of moved it around and to make sense. So that was interesting for me. I didn't judge that character or kind of pigeonhole myself or exclude myself from something. Like, if they want to see me for something, they have a vision, they have an idea. You kind of got to trust it, but then I love what you said
or
about.
Or else you were able to change their idea. So
Yeah,
you went in
exactly. And I love that analogy about this kind of present that you put there. You kind of put the present there, and then just cross your fingers and go drink a bourbon afterwards.
Well, I'm gonna follow up with you as well, because we've got a couple questions, and I am trying to synthesize a lot of these questions. I got a thick stack of them here, so thank you for the participation. But I'm trying to get some common threads in here, and I've seen several questions here about accent, and I think a lot of that has to do with expectation, right? You walk into the room, you look a certain way, somebody expects you to sound a certain way based on your phenotype and the way you express yourself. So I mean, anybody who wants to, Chum and Erik in particular, what have you experienced in terms of meeting or challenging people's expectations on the way that you present yourself and the way that you speak based on maybe what their expectations might be?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I didn't.
Ever gone in for an
Well,
audition?
no.
and you
So,
think
well,
you should have,
clearly
like,
that was
a
my bad.
Puerto Rican accent?
So
Oh, yeah,
the
I've
question,
got-
I mean, you walk into a room, I mean, and people may expect you to speak a certain way or to have a particular accent or whatever it might be, and have you had any experiences with what that's actually like and how you have challenged people or met those expectations one way or the other?
Well, yeah, I moved out here about like 6 years ago, so it's a lot different then than it is now. Like I remember I had an agent, which will remain nameless, not that good, and they used to send me in for stuff. Latino, send them in, and I'd be in there, and it'd be like, oh, Cholo #2, and I'm looking around like, what? I have a faux hawk and I smile too much. this isn't right. But you know, back to like things have changed now. Where now, you know, diversity is just a big thing. Where they're constantly looking, and like Chum said, like you go in there and you have to change their perspective on what they're looking for. I actually, when I first moved out here, like I would talk to every comedian, like just trying to figure out what they were doing, how they did it. And one of the guys was Jay Moore, who's like he's always got these roles. Like he goes from drama to comedy. And I remember I talked to him one time, and I was like, dude, like how does the whole audition thing work? Because I was new to it. And he pretty much told me, he's like, look, at the end of the day, you go in there, they already have in mind who they want. Your job is to knock it out the park so they go, holy shit, who is that guy? We need to bring him back. Even if you don't nail that role, they're going to keep bringing you back because they want to see what you're doing different. So just, you know, go in, be you, make it, take that role, make it yourself, you know, make it funny, make it whatever it is that they're looking for, and make it comfortable for you.
Chum?
I actually, I have a very personal connection to this world because I used to get asked to do a lot of stuff with a kind of Indian, Sri Lankan kind of accent, and that's the last accent I have. I have like a twangy Aussie accent. And I remember like spending the initial part of my career doing these characters and then kind of like really trying to not do those characters and trying to walk away from them because I'm like, no, that's not me. I don't want to get typecast, blah, blah. And then I kind of realized something. I was like, I am of that complexion. And I had this moment where I was like, no, I am Sri Lankan. I just can't pretend to not be Sri Lankan, right? And I just am. And that day, I kind of just really celebrated the fact that I was. And so I was like, okay, if I get an accented audition, I'm just going to be fucking good at it. You know, I'm just going to try and be like really, really good at it. And then I started booking those roles. Then I actually got more leverage to say I didn't want to do them.
Once you were in the room, once you were cast.
Exactly. Once I kind of became like the kind of go-to person, this is in Australia, for that role, there's 2 TV shows where I made them change the accent if they kind of wanted to cast me in it. But that's because kind of like I'd done my dues, you know, like I'd done my time doing those kind of accents. And when I do those accents, I really enjoy it because I love the character. It's well written, it's really funny, it's fresh. And then I have the other issue where I have to do US accents. So I booked a guest on a Fox show. In the audition, I had to do 4 accents. The one scene, 4 different accents. Because, okay, we'll try an Australian, that's interesting. And then I will go back to a standard American. Can you do a Middle Eastern? And I kind of did it in the Middle Eastern. Then, okay, let's try an Indian. And, I mean, if you're an actor and you can do accents, like, it's a skill, you know, learn them. If you're going to do them, be really, really good at it. Don't just do a superficial kind of generic accent. Just nail the inflections, understand how that accent speaks, how the behavior works in that person, what their cultures are, because it informs
authenticity.
Authenticity, yeah. Don't just do a generic accent, like be of that ethnicity, and you'll actually have more fun doing the accents.
Well, and that's something that comes up a lot, I think, when, look, for better or worse, a lot of times the first times that characters are introduced from communities that we haven't seen before, grossly stereotypical. There's different schools of thought on, do I go out for those things? Can I convince anybody of something different once I get into the room? So from the studio folks, or from the network folks, or from the actors themselves, have you found yourself in a position to, Chum already gave an example of changing people's minds once you get in the room, whether it's advice for actors about getting in the room or not, or, hey, look, at some point I'm going to decide not to take those roles, but kind of challenging people's idea about what it is a particular character is or isn't, whether it's disability or LGBT or person of color, kind of from a personal level, how is it that you deal with that? Is it get in the room and change people's minds? Does that actually work? How can you do it without being a huge pain in the ass? How can you do it and convince people that it's worth bringing you back next time?
I think that, attitude is everything when you walk in the room. And I think that if you're apologizing before you even walk in the room for going out for a role that you don't think you're right for, they're going to smell that in the water. And again, going back to what he said, it's if you nail it, if you make if you do it like exactly how you want to do it. And even you may, me, I'm not, a casting director literally said straight up to me, you're not going to be on a breakdown ever. And so I took that as like, instead of being like, oh, well, shit. I was like, I took that as like, okay, well, that's my opportunity then to be my very own thing. And I think if you can really hone in on that and sometimes I don't even look at the specs. I do VO. I don't ever look at what they give me a whole paragraph of VO. I don't ever read it. That's probably not a good advice. But I just do it. I read it and I do it the way I think that I can do it the best, And if that's not what they're looking for, hey, all right. They're going to remember, like I was saying, they're going to remember you if you do what you want to do with the script. I mean, it's like the Breaking Bad guy. I'm blanking on his name.
RJ Mitty.
No, sorry. The lead actor,
Bryan
Cranston. Yep, I should know that name. But he's like, your only job as an actor is to bring your own unique spin on the role. And I think that's the only thing you can do, your only job, our only job as an actor, to bring that every time you walk into a room, And I'm preaching to the choir. But literally, it does work. That stuff, it does work.
And from the casting side, from the network, is that true? Do you find that people can get in the room and change people's minds?
I think it's one of those things where you have to be able to have the ability to read the room.
To read the room?
To read the room. Because there are just certain casting offices or producers or writers who are sitting there and watching these auditions, and you'll be able to feel it. I think it's important to come into the audition and nail whatever is written on the breakdown description. And if you feel as though there is an opportunity for you to make another decision and either lose the accent or do something different, you can always ask. But it's one of those things where you have to be able to kind of go into the rooms, deliver what is expected on that from the breakdown description, but be able to kind of and put it out there and let the casting director or let the producer say no, that's totally fine. Because you never know. It may be a crucial part of a storyline that you don't see in the breakdown description. So again, it's about, there are just so many different elements in coming into an audition, and you don't know where that role is going to go in series or what have you. So the worst thing to do is to go into a room and go into an audition and basically just blow out whatever the breakdown description is, and you just turn off. The casting directors will be turned off. The writers will just be turned off, and you just blew a relationship that could have been, that could have taken you somewhere else.
But I also think if you're gonna, you were saying, should they go in? I mean, if you're miserable about a role, don't go in, because the other thing is, don't go in on a role and then pass. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're not gonna go, if you don't want to do it, then don't go in on it. But you see where I'm going with that, right, Adam?
No, I think, and again, this is back to the balancing on that kind of razor's edge, right? You got to own it, but you got to be able to give back. You got to be able to give a little bit. You have to be able to know who you are as a performer, but also be willing to be flexible. There's been there's all these traditional wisdoms in the industry, right? That's not going to play in Peoria. These things don't sell overseas. We're seeing a lot of these, what I've always thought are myths, being busted over and over and over again, I think in great deal of part to television, from the experience that you're having in the rooms that you're going into as performers, or from the conversations you're having with your colleagues and your employers in the networks. How much of that kind of established wisdom is actually changing? How much is it that there are actually people looking for stories from communities that we haven't seen, because people realize that actually folks are hungry for those things? Are we in the moment that I hope we are, where people are desperate to find stories from communities that have been underrepresented, or is that just me being hopeful?
We're in the moment.
Yeah, I want to say that a few years ago, NBC started having a large showrunners annual meeting. And the focus of the first one was that diversity is just good marketing and good business. Because those stories that are not told yet, they exist right now, and there are viewing audiences that are dying to watch them untold in a dramatic or comedic format. And if we ignore that hunger and don't feed it, then we're going to starve monetarily as a corporation. So we are doing it for the thrill of remaining edgy and remaining poignant, yes, definitely. But at the end of the day, they're looking at the numbers. Who is watching TV? And in just a few short years, the landscape of the audience out there, let's say, they say like in, I don't know, like 20 years, the population of Latinos will be 50% of, you know, the nation. But also, it's not just, am I a Latino that's counted in that percentage? Am I married into a Latino culture or family? I'm also a member of someone that's exposed to that interest, and I as well want to watch that. So periphery on the side, I may not be counted, but that number increasingly grows day in and day out. And it is bad business to ignore those stories. That's why we make it a huge priority to try to find a way to tell them authentically and to direct them with perspectives that originate from those origins. And if, like I said, if we did not, then we would just plummet. Our stock would fall, and that'd be the end of NBC.
That's why we need diverse writers. They've got to write. You gotta
I mean, at this point, I hate to, you know, diversity is not a trend. Diversity is our reality, right? So, you know, it's one of those things, you know, for ABC is that it's the reality. Television is a global experience. So why not have our screens reflect that? You know, so, and what Fern said, we need those voices. We need the Shonda Rhimes. We need the Natasha Khans. We need the John Ridleys who are going to go in there and pitch stories that are authentic to them. It could be a story, you know, that is based on their life, like Kenya Barris, or it could be something totally different. That's what we are waiting for, and that's what we all want to be able to produce, is those authentic stories that resonate with our audiences. And our audiences is not just the American audience, it's the global audience. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it doesn't seem as it's as narrowly focused, right? That the only audience for this quote unquote black film is a black audience, right? I mean, I think we're busting that myth, right? That people are hungry for, as they always have been. This is the way that we oftentimes interact and learn about things outside of our own communities, is through our screens. Because for many of us, that's the only opportunity we may have to engage in those things. So I'm encouraged to hear from your perspective that that's what you're hearing. I'd be curious to know how that may be playing out in some of the performers' experiences. Have you been in rooms the last few years that you thought, man, 5 years ago that wouldn't happen? 5 years ago, these people would not necessarily have been paying attention to me in this way as a storyteller, as a dynamic and unique performer. Are there experiences that you've had that kind of points towards some hopeful and, you know, in a cynical way, I suppose, people trying to exploit stories that they should have been exploiting a long time ago?
I actually had that experience. This pilot season, especially after having done the showcase, was a very busy pilot season for me. And it was interesting because I don't think any of the roles asked for an Indian accent, which I found really interesting. Wow. And I kind of felt like it was a real colorblind casting opportunity where they were just like, okay, I reckon this person could play it. And when I went into the room, I saw the role, and I was like, oh my God, there's so many different people for this role. And it was really refreshing, because now I was like, because sometimes I feel anyway, that you can get diversity and tokenism. And it's this kind of balance that you go, oh, is this diverse or is it just a token, right? And I don't like tokenism, and I'm sure a lot of people don't, because it's just tokenism. But when I saw this, I was like, oh, great. This is an opportunity for the best actor to get the job, and for the guy or the girl who's got the character to get the job. And I noticed that a lot in this pilot season, which I found really refreshing. It's what these guys are saying, that, yeah, it's trending that way, that it's not about how they sound, it's just about have they captured the character.
Erik, you seeing not quite as many, hey, come out for Cholo number 2, and we're just going to have you as dad number 1, or what?
Oh no, the landscape is definitely changing, and like they said before, you can pick and choose your battles. Like I remember when I first came out here, especially in the stand-up world. Like I was used to doing comedy clubs. New York, you do comedy clubs. Then come out here, those are the boxes. Like I remember I got out here, went up to some club, and I was like, "Hey, stand-up comic from New York, what's up?" And they're like, "Oh, we got Quesadilla Wednesdays." This is like, what? I'm sorry, what? And they're like, yeah, come back on Wednesdays. That's your night. And I was like, all right, I don't. So that's a battle I chose. I could have not done that night and not gotten into the clubs, but I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to suck it up here, swallow my pride a little bit, do this night. Did the night. Booking manager in the back was like, oh man, you're fine. You could do any night. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Like. And then I also saw what auditions. Like I remember first time out here, it was like I was sent in for gang member, I was sent in for landscape, I was sent in for, cleaning guy, and it's like you pick and choose those battles. It was some I was like, nah, I can't. There's just no way. I'm not gonna tell my mother to go watch that. She's not gonna be proud at all. But now you go in like this last pilot season, it was like, hey, your best friend, you're this guy, and it was like, oh, okay, cool. I could just be me because there is such a need to see ourselves on TV, and it's not just it's not Latinos with an accent and just got it. There's American-born Latinos like myself, when it's like we want to see ourselves on TV, So it's been great, and now we're getting more opportunities to pitch shows. A lot of networks are developing shows because we're looking for the next Latino Seinfeld, the Latino Cosby Show, but without the
Please move on.
Because we haven't had that. So like you see these networks are like, all right, we need to get more people, more diversity on television because we're the audiences. We're not tuning in if it's not legit. Like one of my favorite shows, Friends. I watch it on Netflix, and I'm watching it. I'm from New York. I'm like, there was not one Puerto Rican on that show. Like Joey and Chandler not one time went to a bodega for real. Like that's. So if that show existed now, I wouldn't tune in. I'd be like, nah, it's 6 white friends? Get out of here. Like, I want to see, where's the black friend? Where's the Asian? Like, come on, this is New York,
Yeah, I tend to think that show wouldn't fly today. The audiences simply wouldn't watch it today.
Yeah, no, so like it's got to be authentic too. It's got to be, and that's why I say I go back to my original point. Create the shows you want to see. Create your voice. Create your stories, because that's at the end of the day, if you do get the opportunity to pitch, that's what the networks want to hear. Like what do you bring to the table?
Yeah, and just speaking to that, I just want to mention that at the end of the day, we can try to push the creation of, let's say, Latino female lead series, and we had 4 of those this past season. And what it turned out was that the one that was the greatest success was not like the highest concept, like Emerald City, where it's about like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. And it's not telenovela with Eva Longoria, even though she has this gigantic dynasty and sort of like she's a machine of herself. But America Ferrara in Superstore, it's a very low concept story about a girl that has a everyday job. And it's funny, and it's a universal story about how she and all her coworkers just find their own way through a tough, like, middle-income life. And that's a universal story. And I think at the end of the day, we can't put ideas about who our audience is and what they're interested in and say, we know what you want to watch. At the end of the day, if the audience is not watching us, that's their vote. That's not what we're interested in. Stop telling that story. It doesn't speak to us as well as just a universal, genuine, honest, individual, either struggle or passion or love or just joy. Like something simple can get renewed for a second season, where other things that are very high concept or very far-fetched or very high budget that we try to believe, like, oh, this audience, like what was mentioned earlier, is like that audience is gonna love like Fast and the Furious because it's got cars and it takes place in Tokyo. That's we can't just keep pushing those agendas on you. We put it out there, and at the end of the day, the audience will gravitate by watching and tell us who they're voting for, what stories they're telling for. They're telling us they want to watch.
I think that's right. I'm gonna get into some words of wisdom here at the end because we're wrapping up. So I want you guys to think about, for the performers, what you would tell yourself, say 5, 10 years ago, before you had the opportunity to be a part of such great families at the networks, the kind of piece that you've learned that you would want to remind yourself, and maybe from the beginning to know, and from the network people, the kinds of information that you want. The one thing that you can tell somebody as to how they might be able to stand out in their application material and what they're doing. We've heard a lot of those things already. As you're thinking about that, I want to pick up on something that was said, that as audiences, this is unlike any other time that we've ever had. Whether you can choose with your dollars and your eyeballs in ways that has never been done before, because you have more choices than ever before that are going to be driving these decisions. And you can also highlight the work that you like. Through social media and through your own networks, you can, in what has historically been a very passive medium, you're going to sit there, and if you don't like it, that's tough. There's not much else out there for you. You can really dictate to the traditional greenlighters and gatekeepers the kinds of things that you want to see more of, to advertisers, to the networks, to the studios. Vote with your dollars and your eyeballs about what you want to see, because then they'll make more of it. Because if they don't, as Jandiz said, they're not going to be around much longer. So we'll start with the performers about those words of wisdom that you would maybe give yourself in the beginning of the process, and then we'll hear from the networks.
I distinctly remember when I made it into the showcase, the first day, the cast were kind of in this room. It was one of the most grueling audition processes I've ever gone through in my life. And we were all just so happy. And then the head director came up, and she's like, "I've got one rule." And I was like, "Oh, shit." I thought it's tough before, it's going to get tougher now. And she's like, "The one rule is you must have fun. And if you don't like the rule, you can leave now." And when she said that, I was just like, "Oh, this is going to be cool." And if I was 5 years ago, if I could have said that to myself, I think I would have probably enjoyed my process a lot more. I would have enjoyed falling on my face a lot more. But that stuck with me, and I think it'll stick with me all the way through.
I would say it's super easy to get lost in LA in a bunch of different things. And every day when you go to bed, make a list of what you're going to do the next day to work towards what you're trying to do. That is so crucial, and don't get caught up in where you're trying to be. Just look at the thing that you're going to do tomorrow to get there. And keep continuing to do that. You're going to meet people. If you just do that, you're going to meet people, you're going to develop your skills, and you're going to get to where you need to be to do what you want to do. That's all mine.
Erik?
Brett.
We keep doing this to you.
God. I think I would have told myself, stay in school. Don't, no. I'm going to piggyback off of Brett. Just stay in your lane, man. Like, it's so easy in this town to look next to you like, oh, why'd that person get that? Why'd that person get that? And get so bitter. Like, I've met a lot of bitter people out here just like, oh, F that guy. That could have been me. Just stay in your lane. There's enough out there for everyone. Like I said before, and I'm going to keep hammering this home. Keep creating. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep working on your craft. Don't take no for an answer. Like, that was one of the things when I first moved out here. Like, after doing the NBC thing and meeting with everybody, like, I was like, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I took the acting classes. I took the improv classes. I took on-camera classes. I took audition classes. Like, I was like, I'm going to sharpen all these tools so when I get that shot to go pitch, when I get that shot to go audition, I'm ready to go. Because I don't want to get caught blindsided and not be prepared. So just keep sharpening those tools so that when you get your chance, you're in there and you're a killer. You're ready to go.
Thank you.
And I do want to say this. Film your own stuff. I put just a quick story of just how easily it can happen. I was like, I need a reel. I literally wrote 3 one-minute scenes. I filmed them, put it up on YouTube. 2 weeks later, this guy hits me up. I don't know who he is. He's like, hey, great stuff. Would love to work with you. Looked at his stuff. He had a Doritos commercial in Super Bowl. I'm like, yeah, cool. It's funny. Let's do it. Then he gets into Project Greenlight. He's a director, right? Gets into Project Greenlight. He ends up getting second. The guy's name's Chris Capel. In Project Greenlight, we worked with the Fairley brothers, right? We didn't. They did. I got to say hi, Mr. Peter Fairley. But through that, so Peter Fairley loved this director. This director now has this project that he wants me, it's still in very much pre-production, but because of, and now he wants me to be a lead, one of the series regulars of this pilot that Peter Farrelly is going to produce. Where did it come from? Me writing 3 one-minute scenes and putting it on YouTube.
Do it.
It's literally, it's at your fingertips. You can do it.
What are our words of wisdom? Is that the question? You mean like for auditioning for the show? Okay, for me it's be funny, and be confident, know your stuff, and be really well prepared. And sometimes we will say, okay, now what else do you have? You can't just rely on maybe a few short things. But for me, the most important is you got to be funny. I don't care if it's appropriate, inappropriate. If it's not funny, I'm not gonna respond.
Unless you're auditioning for Game of Thrones, in which case they might not like that.
But this
otherwise,
specific
be funny.
thing, yes.
Be specific. Right. Peachy, Jandiz?
I think it for me is persistent. Be persistent in anything and everything that you do. Go in and audition. As you can see, we have a lot of initiatives, a lot of showcases. It's not just from us. There's so many different workshops and classes and like what, creating your own things. That's one of those things, because, in order to break that glass, you're not going to always have a boulder. You may just be equipped with little pebbles. So that's what you need to do, is just got to keep knocking on those doors, making those relationships, because one day you will go ahead and break that glass, and for you to step through it and find the success that you've been looking for. So persistence.
I also want to add that another great characteristic to have is vigilance, because that's something that you can only carry for yourself for the long haul, for the marathon. And then just adding to what these gentlemen are saying about creating your own content, I just want to plug that the Short Film Festival, which I'm allowed to give 2 talent holding deals to the best actress, is now open to submissions, and this year we are opening it to pilot presentations as well as web series episodes. And that means that if you have created something within the last 2 years that maybe you pitched and maybe didn't go somewhere, if you don't have exclusivity with anywhere else, we have no exclusivity with our NBCU Short Film Festival. It's free to submit, and we give out some, I said, like, some amazing prizes. And I think Marlon Wayans is going to be a judge this year. Justin Lin, who directed Star Trek Beyond and like Fast and Furious, they're going to be judges. Gina Davis was a judge last year. So even if you don't win, there are very important people watching this content, and it's a good opportunity, and I'd encourage you to submit.
It's a great film festival.
So make your work, own your work, bring it. Look, I can't thank them enough. Erik, Jandiz, Brett, Fern, Chum, Peachy. Give it up. And thank you to the foundations.